Here, and so I just wanted to welcome everybody. My name is Jacob Newman. I'm the Regional Services Director here in Silver Spring. As many of you know, you are in the Urban District, an Arts and Entertainment District, and we encourage you to sign in, maybe on your way out if you haven't already. That will put you on our newsletter, the option to opt in to some of our social media channels to experience all that Silver Spring has to offer. Want to give a special thanks to the Silver Spring Citizens Advisory Board for helping to co-facilitate and co-sponsor this evening's budget conversation tonight with County Executive Mark Elrich. And without further ado, because I know we have a little bit of a packed PowerPoint, and we also want to hear a lot of what's important to you and your neighbors and your businesses. So with that, I will introduce County Executive Mark Elrich.
So I'm going to try to, you all hear me?
Go ahead.
Now can you all, yeah. I can scare myself that way. Okay, so I'm going to try to get used to where I'm going to stand and point at things up here. This is something I have to learn. Anyway, so this is our, which one of this is, sixth or seventh? Seventh budget forum. We've been doing them around the county. And this is a change in practice. When I first elected, budget forums were done after the budget was done to get input, which is kind of pointless because input's better at the front end than the back end. So we changed it to do these forums now, and our budget process begins in our offices now. So you'll see people from my staff here tonight, and people are trying to make sure that take notes, and we're going to, as we put our budget together, we're considering the things that people ask for. And so that's why we've changed the process, so we can make sure we get input at the early part of the process rather than the last part of the process. We're going to do, I think, 4 more of these around the county, and by the time that's over with, our budget department will be rolling. We have to produce a budget for the council by March 15th. And so that's our goal, is to hit that. We always have to hit the target. It's not like an optional goal. It's the target we have to hit. So we'll get that done by March 15th. Then it goes over to the council, and the council gets it done over the next 2 months. And that's kind of the time frame around all of this. We are still waiting budget numbers from the state. As you can imagine, the county gets a lot of money from the state, particularly for schools and some for infrastructure. We don't know what we're going to get this early, but we do know that the state news is not good. The state's estimates right now is they will have no more than a 1% growth in income this year, which will be far less than inflation. They've already told us that money for transportation construction projects is not there. And so that money's not going to, we're working on solutions to some of this, but right now that money's not there. As you've experienced, some of you, money for housing support, dried up. Money for food support, dried up. Money for any number of things, dried up between the state and federal government. So we've seen a real reduction in what's available to us versus what was available to us before. So it's been a change. The county has 2 budgets. One's an operating budget, one's a capital budget. I'll explain. You know what a capital budget is? Everybody know? Who doesn't know what a capital budget is? Fair enough. Capital budget pays for things. Like this building, the Civic Center here was built out of the capital budget. Every school, every bridge, every road, every transportation bus, every rec center, all the things that are solid and immovable except for rolling stock are built out of the capital budget. And our capital budget has been limited, I'll talk more about this later, to about $280 million in bond funding every year, along with other revenues that we raise. The operating budget is services, and this is everything: the K-12 education, early childhood, the community college, community development and housing, debt service, economic development, land use planning. We fund park and planning, we fund the school system, We fund the courts, at least the sheriff's department and some of the courts. But this is basically everything you see done by human beings in the county is paid for out of the operating budget. Next. This is kind of a breakdown. This shows you what we did in FY25. You're in FY25 now, even though this is 2024. FY25 ends on June 30th. So we're on a year cycle, but our cycle is July 1 through June 30th. So this is FY25. We have revenues of a little over $7 billion. Property tax is about 32% of it, a little $2,285 million. Income taxes produce $2,051 million. Intergovernmental transfers, this is money we get from the state or the federal government. That's $1,536 million. Charges for services are $481 million. Other taxes, small stuff, $327 million. Fines and miscellaneous is $246 million. Thank any of you who've gotten parking tickets for contributing extra to the county budget. And transfer and recordation taxes are $162 million. Transfer and recordation taxes, as I'll show you later, is our most volatile number. It comes from the sale of property. So anytime a commercial building sells or residence sells, that money is taxed as a transfer when it transfers hands, and it's taxed when it's recorded as a deed. So we get two taxes out of that source of money. These are our approved expenditures, and so our expenditures for this year is $7,130 million. As you can see, the school system is this large part of the pie, and it's $33.3 billion. Montgomery College gets $334 million. Public safety is the next largest chunk of the budget. It's fire, police, the corrections facility, the sheriffs that do the courts. All of that winds up being $755 million. Health and Human Services, which is $511 million, which is where most of the human services come out of. Some of the housing stuff comes out of the housing department, but most of what you see in terms of clinics and other people you get in terms of Health and Human Services folks. General government is $396 million. Transportation is $286. The environment drops to $200 million. Grants, insurance, and the earned income tax credit are $195 million. The earned income tax credit is a supplement we pay on top of the federal program, which helps take care or raise the incomes of people who have inadequate incomes to basically make it here. So we put in more than we're legally required to put in because we know the legal requirement is too small. Libraries, culture, and recreation, all three together get to $128 million. Housing is $129 million. This is the operating side of housing. It's not the totality of what we put in housing. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we've done in the housing budget, but it's more than the $129 million. OPEB is the money we pay into the retirees' health insurance plan. So if you're an employee and you're leaving the system, when you leave the system, you have this health insurance to cover you for a period of time until Medicare kicks in. But it funds that gap. It is, this is my least favorite thing we spend money on because every year we pay the current year's expenses of employee retirement. So anybody in this room a retiree? Okay, so if you're getting county retirement, that's paid out of current dollars. We're also putting money in so that people 15 years from now won't have to pay anything. And so we're putting it into a fund which they're hoping that 15 years ago has enough money in it that it creates interest and dividends that are sufficient to pay what you're paying for every year, which is the current expenses of retirees. The reason I don't like this is because there's no reason why people in the future shouldn't pay what we're paying. And the problem for us is that money, some of that money, it's not all of it, but the part that's future expenditures is money we'd otherwise be using to meet current needs. When this is taken out of the budget 15 years from now and they're paying for it with interest, that council won't have any obligation to meet current needs, and they'll wind up with a lot of money. And I don't think it's fair to current residents to be paying that much when we have so many needs in this county that we need to address. I've tried to change it. I have not been successful convincing the council to go as low as I would like to go. Next. So 25, these are our fixed and other commitments, another way of looking about what we're doing with our general fund. So as you can see, if you take the college and MCPS, it's 54% of our budget. And then this is public safety. That's the rest of the budget. So public safety is about 50% higher than the rest of the budget. So these are the rest of the budget, meaning things that you actually can see that you get. Debt service is what we pay to retire debt in the county. This is the OPEB and pension reserves that we're funding. The reserve is the money that is for future retirement. That's $190 million. PAYGO is the capital that we put into the budget every year, cash we put into the budget every year for capital projects, so that we're not 100% funding our capital projects with bonds. We're putting about $51 million in there for bonds. Next, physical challenges and budget pressures. So this is kind of what we're dealing with this year. First, you all know what the blueprint is? Okay, so that's the school funding plan from the state. When they passed this, there was supposed to be state money that would help all the counties deal with this. And there's not state money to help all the counties deal with it, which is why you hear so much noise around the state from people who are concerned about the inadequate funding of the blueprint. The counties and the state are not able to fund what they planned on funding. There's going to be a lot of discussion this year in the legislature because a lot of counties can't make their commitments under the blueprint. Montgomery County made them, but we had to put in a tax increase to make the first big piece of it. Our first problem was by 26, next year's budget, all the teachers in the state have to be paid $60,000 as a starting pay, whether you're in Montgomery County or whether you're, say, in Garrett County, where the cost of living is radically different. And so Montgomery County teachers are making about $53,000. At the same time they were making $53,000, DC school system upped their teacher pay for starting teachers to $75,000. We're not competitive. And even if DC hadn't done that, in 26, when everybody has to pay $60,000, our ability, if you could live on the Eastern Shore next to the beach 12 months a year and have your summer off and make $60,000 and then try to make that same $60,000 in Montgomery County, it doesn't go as far. So we're not only going to have to be the same as everybody else, we will probably have to be 10% above everybody else to get teachers to come here, and that puts a lot of pressure on our budget. We have constrained resources. We have limited ways to raise money in this county. I have very little authority to add new taxes to the budget. So it's very, very hard to add anything new. Where property taxes are pretty much capped where they are. It takes all 11 council members to vote for a property tax increase, and income taxes are capped by state law at 3.2%. Everybody pays the same percent. I don't think that's fair, so there's a bill in the legislature that'll be back again this year. It would allow us to graduate our income taxes in the county a little bit, and we would like to try to graduate the income taxes so people in the lowest brackets aren't paying the same as people who make $1 billion, and there are people who make that much here. And they also have all these tax credits and none of us ever get to pay. If you saw the chart of effective tax rates, like what people in different tax brackets pay, you would be alarmed because the highest tax bracket pays less than most people pay in terms of percentage of their income. So there's efforts to try to change that. I support those efforts. But otherwise we live with constrained resources, and the stuff that the state's running into with their budget are going to make our problems even worse. The governor is proposing, it looks like they've got a new economic development plan, the economic development plan, would reduce Maryland's tax on corporations from 8% to 5%. And that would be another large chunk of money that won't be coming to the jurisdiction. So we're waiting to see how all this lands on us, which is why it's really important. We're listening right now, but we don't know what we're actually going to have until we, A, find out what the state's given us from last year's taxes, and then figure out what the state's going to do going forward. That could have a very serious effect on us. Infrastructure demands are really serious here. As much as I love the Metro, Metro does not serve Montgomery County as a primary transit system. Other jurisdictions have proper subway systems or transit systems that are north, south, east, west. They create a grid. They're able to move people around. I'll talk about this more, but the reason we are losing to Virginia is Virginia made a tax decision, which I'll show you in a few slides, in 2012 that altered their ability to build infrastructure, and Montgomery County has refused to copy their model as a way of more effectively providing infrastructure. We still deal with inflation and financial market conditions. Conditions are getting better, inflation's coming down, but we had a couple of years of really horrible inflation, and that made everything we do cost more. And it looks like the next financial pressure that's going to hit us, but also you, is PGM, which controls the grid, just did an auction for energy off the PGM grid, and they're looking at increases of like 800% in terms of what people are bidding to get on that grid. So that is going to translate into much higher electric bills for everybody in the county. And I do not like PGM either, PJM. Maintenance of effort is per student costs. Maintenance of effort requires us to spend the same as we spent the previous year, the following year, adjusted for inflation, extend population growth, and we got an exemption from that in somewhere around 2010, 2011. The good news then, we needed the exemption. The bad news is the county reset its pace, and we've never caught up with per pupil spending since then, even though we're no longer in the recession. Real estate taxes are volatile, but this is the real problem, is recordation and transfer, because housing sales dried up for the last 2 years, and there hasn't been as much movement in the market. And when commercial buildings are selling, they're often selling for a fraction of what they were worth before. I've seen properties over $120 million. The last time they sold a few years ago on the market now for $38 million. So what we will get in the transfer and the recordation tax is a fraction of what we normally would have gotten. With the Fed finally changing its interest rate policy, so that interest rates are coming down, we expect a more normal real estate market. Certainly by the spring, we expect the real estate market to be more normal. This thing alone cost us about $75 million last year in revenue that we didn't get. So a normal real estate market could be a serious boost to the revenues in the county to offset some of this other stuff. And then there's recruitment and retention challenges. Everybody's having the same problem. Coming out of COVID, wages have gone up. People have decided they're not going to work for peanuts. People want more money. They want to be able to enjoy their lives a little bit more. They don't want to have to work multiple jobs. And all those things are impacting both recruitment and retention. We have a $20,000 supplement for police to work in Montgomery County because we're looking at being short 200 police. If we don't fill this gap, our pay was not comparable to other jurisdictions. We've gone from being very well paid to being one of the worst paid, and so we're trying to make up for that. And in general, with the county, we're trying to make sure that we don't lose employees to other places. And if we can't keep pace with the private sector, and we continue to hear from department managers that are losing people because somebody says, I can do my same job in the private sector and make thousands of dollars more than I make working for the government, so why do I stay here? And not everybody will do that. This is what I was talking about. This is the per student adjustment, the maintenance of effort. So this dotted line and the gray lines represent all the money we get, including county money and state money and some federal money. So at our peak in FY10, we were spending $22,000 per pupil. We fell off that, and today we're spending $20,639. So it's about a $2,000 difference per pupil in what we're spending. And I'm a former teacher, and I can tell you, it came out of the classroom. And when I was teaching up to 2006, they had already started cutting the aides in the classroom, and it's the most impactful thing on a teacher. If you're in a school system and you have kids of different abilities, they're trying to have us teach 3 lessons in a 45-minute or an hour and a half block, depending on the subject, and 3 lessons with an aide in your classroom is manageable. But if you don't have an aide in your classroom, that means that a student gets your attention for 30 minutes, and for 60 minutes, the kids are on their own. And it may be possible for high school students to work independently in a meaningful way. It's not fair to do that to elementary school kids because they do not have the kind of self-correcting mechanisms that would keep them on task. And so it's had a real negative impact, I think, on the schools. This is just the county money, the blue line. So we peaked in county spending at $16,316 in FY10. We're down almost $3,000, actually more than $3,000 to $13,224. So we're putting less into the schools. So for any of you who are critical of the schools and wonder why they struggle to staff some of the things, like why don't you have more counselors? Why don't you have, more support? If you're spending less than you were in FY10 per student, you can't expect the same services. Inflation, this is all inflation adjusted. Inflation just ate up a lot of that money. And it's a real problem now to not be able to fund schools the way I think they should be funded. And you can't complain about outcomes if you're not willing to invest, I think. Next. This compares us by jurisdiction. Baltimore City is up here, Howard County's up there, Prince George's County is here, that's Montgomery County. We used to be here, now we're here. Next. This is our borrowing policy. We have a policy of spending $280 million a year in bonds. So bonds are money we get from financial institutions, and we pay off the bonds over 20 or 30 years largely, and they provide us long-term spending for capital projects, so we don't have to find the cash every year for everything. But when you stay at $280,000 for about 7 years, $280 million today is not worth what it was 7 years ago. You cannot buy what you had 7 years ago with $280 million today. So we've actually made it more difficult, and that's why you see a piling up of school projects and other projects, because since we're not spending as much to keep track with inflation, we're actually falling behind on construction projects. We probably, if we had started from back here as your benchmark, we should be up to about that much, over $500 million, just to have stayed afloat with inflation. But even from, if you start in about FY16, if we had gone up with inflation, we would have been closer to $340 million a year, which is what we were spending when I was on the council. So they've dropped the spending by $60 million a year, which is $360 million over 6 years. And so if you think you're seeing less, you probably are, because we can't build what we were building before. Next. So one of the things that I'm pushing is restructuring taxes in Montgomery County. And we have a really good example next door in Northern Virginia. And so I've looked a lot at what Virginia does to compare it to what Montgomery County does, and used it both internally, but used for negotiations with the state. Our current property tax and real estate transaction tax was all based on this county being largely residential. About 1960. Then when they integrated DC and the school system there, you had white flight out to the suburbs. A lot of money came out here. There was a huge housing boom, but also businesses started coming out here. DC, the growth was initially good for Montgomery County, and it brought a lot of new revenues in, but it was not sustainable. And it reflects the post-war economy from the 50s and 60s. During this time, we were able to build the best schools, and we had a relatively modern infrastructure. You can't say that now. Montgomery County is now a mature and developed community, and if we're going to maintain our competitive edge, we have to continue to invest in schools. We've got to build transportation. And as I'll show you coming up, is transportation is the place where we've been killed by Northern Virginia. They built the Silver Line. Every single county in Northern Virginia is working on bus rapid transit lines. In Montgomery County, I proposed bus rapid transit 15 years ago. We don't have 1 inch of real bus rapid transit in this county. And Virginia has built a ton of transportation. And that's why people go places, is of infrastructure. And if you don't build infrastructure, people go someplace else. And they're not going to Virginia for taxes, because that's what you're going to see on the next slide, I think. This is the transfer and recordation thing. You can skip that now. Okay. So this is like kind of Montgomery County's tax structure, and it hinders our opportunities. This is Montgomery County's commercial property rate and residential property rate, and that includes 11 cents from the state. So our rate is really about $1.04. So let's look at DC. Their residential rate is 85 cents on your property taxes. So you'd be paying 20 cents less per $100 of value if we had DC's tax system. The only reason they can do this is that property over $10 million DC, which is probably anything in downtown DC, is taxed at $1.89. So all these cranes going up in DC are going up in a place where their tax rate on commercial property is, I don't know, 74 cents higher than ours. And at a $5 million property, their tax is about $1.60. Only when you get down to the lower levels does it go down to $1.04, which is the same as ours. Then you go to so that's the residential, which is, I think, amazing. Then you go to Virginia. Their base tax is $1.20 on commercial and residential property, but they've got special taxing districts, for example, in Tyson's Corner, and they're paying $1.51. So if somebody tells you that these guys are fleeing to Virginia because the taxes on development are too much in Montgomery County, it's flat out not true. We are the cheapest state in the region. And if you're the cheapest state in the region and you're not competitive, then your problem isn't taxes, your problem is something else. Your problem is the lack of infrastructure. In Virginia, around 2011, 2012, the commercial property owners went with the Fairfax County Council down to a Republican governor and a Republican legislature in Richmond and convinced them to give the Northern Virginia counties taxing authority on commercial property to have a different rate on commercial property than residential property, because they knew if they tried to raise as much money as they're raising there off of commercial property, they'd have a tax rebellion. And they realized they needed to do the economic development in order to grow their economy. That was the only way they were going to do it. And so they got permission from the state to do special taxing districts, and that's what they do in the Northern Virginia county. So they're able to raise far more money for economic development purposes, like building BRT, building the subway, building roads, and Montgomery County has not any money to build any of those things. I cannot build BRT. I could never build the subway. We are pretty much stuck until we change our taxing structure. So what I've been asking the council to consider is replicating Virginia's structure, keeping ours lower, and down to $1.04, but making sure that when you're in Bethesda, Bethesda is the least taxed place for commercial property. In Virginia, Tyson's Corner is the most taxed place for commercial property because their investments in transportation help them attract businesses to Northern Virginia. Our refusal to do the same thing has meant we don't attract people to come here. And if I had a chart of job growth, which I didn't include in this slide, our jobs are flat for more than 20 years. We are not, so we've lost some jobs. Our life sciences industry has grown jobs. It has not grown enough jobs to offset everything we've lost or to actually create a truly positive growth environment for jobs here. So we continue to do a lot of work. We've spent a lot of time this last year and a half recruiting businesses from Asia and trying to get companies to come over here and bring startups over here and some already established companies over here. We need to grow the economy, and we know that a lot of people, particularly if you're in life sciences, they want to be close to NIH and the FDA, which is a big selling point for us. So we've put a lot of effort into bringing companies here, and we've had some success. Next. This is from Washington, D.C. This is a comparison of commercial taxes between all these counties. And D.C. does this study every 2 years because they want to see where they are competitively with everybody else. So you can see that this is for 2020 tax burden of small businesses, small corporations. So the highest burdens in D.C., second highest burdens in Alexandria, third highest burdens in Arlington, fourth highest burdens in Fairfax County, fifth highest burden is in Prince George's County, the lowest burden is Montgomery County. So basically, you guys are getting taken to the cleaners so that other people don't have to pay taxes. For the large corporations, same story. D.C. the most taxed, Alexandria next, Arlington, Fairfax, Prince George's County, and Montgomery County. It's important for you all to think about this because if we put on a campaign to try to change the tax structure in the county, you need to show up. This is the opportunity to talk about how do we shift the burden, but more importantly, how do we get enough money to build infrastructure so we can enjoy the economic growth that Virginia enjoyed. I mean, if all we did was change your tax burden and we weren't able to grow, we wouldn't get much benefit out of it, but we need to be able to grow, so we've got to get unstuck from where we are today. Next. So next is what's on your mind. So I just wanted to give you a sense of what we're dealing with. So you can, as you ask for millions of dollars in new programs, remember we've got constraints. There are things I think we're going to be able to do where there will be some revenues coming from some sources that we think are going to be positive. They're not huge, but they could be meaningful, at least in terms of doing some things that are smaller projects. We're looking at FEMA owes us somewhere between $60 and $100 million. We're supposed to get it, provided the hurricanes don't use up all of FEMA's money. We're supposed to get that money this fall, whatever percentage they decide is ours. And what we're going to try to do is I'm going to take some of it and try to fill the gaps that were left when there were cuts made at the end of the budget cycle by the council to social services, and I want to restore some of what was cut then if we get the money we're expecting from FEMA. But we want to carry most of that over with the other revenues that we're looking at, so we're not starting next year in as big a hole as we're in right now. So there are, two people are going to walk around with microphones?
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Get a round of applause, please. There are many departments here with us tonight, and we want to thank and recognize the Office of Management and Budget, our Public Information Office, Technology Enterprise Business Solutions, TEBS, our IT folks, Police, Department of Permitting Services, Human Resources. I see a lot of people in the room tonight, so just really appreciate the expertise and wisdom. Chief of Fire and Rescue right here, Chief Corey Smedley, thank you for being here. So as there's some folks who have been here before, so you know the drill. Lorna would tell you, we hold the mic. So if you have a question, we're going to come to you on the left side, and on the right side, work the room from the front to the back, and we will hold the mic. We ask respectfully that you clearly and concisely state your question, because there are a lot of people here and we have a limited amount of time to ask questions tonight. So please, if raise a hand, we'll go through the audience, and there will be time to ask your questions. Without further ado, I see we have somebody on the right and some folks on the left as well.
need a 3-mic
that's my job.
performance.
Good evening. My name is Joy Dingle. I am a past volunteer and ongoing supporter of Shepherd's Table. A significant number of our neighbors experiencing food and housing insecurity struggle with mental health issues. What investments will you make to ensure adequate mental health crisis response?
So we have crisis teams, and we're on a track to expand the number of crisis teams. That's one thing, because it's not a huge dollar ask. It's something I think we can continue to do, is to expand the crisis teams. And I think that's important. We also need to we need more than that, though, because there's a problem in the homeless community, but there's a huge problem in this community with both young adults and with children. And we've got to figure out how we can provide more facilities. And we're going to be building a diversion center. I'm not sure what year it opens, but we are going to build the diversion center to give people an alternative if they get arrested for something, say, stupid but not dangerous, irritating but not something you would throw somebody in jail for if you could. They would be offered the door to a restoration center as opposed to a door to a jail. And our goal is to try to... We would like to remove as much of the criminal stuff as we can. The same thing with kids. You know, there's this big controversy now about, there was an effort to kill the school-to-prison pipeline. This response with no support for kids, I think, was really problematic. To say that nobody's going to get arrested, but then send people home to parents who say, I can't control my kid, that was not a solution either. We've been pushing for facilities that can be a substitute for jail, where a person can go there and get help, but they don't get a criminal record. It's not an arrest, it's not a criminal record, it's just a place where you can go, work with a counselor, talk with people who can help you. Because I don't want to create, prison sentences are basically life sentences. You know, you think about this, I only got 6 months. Try getting a job with a conviction. Try renting an apartment with a conviction. It ain't going to happen. And you're not going to be able to run from it, because wherever you go in the United States, that conviction goes with you. And so as much as we can get rid of those things, that's where we would like to drive this.
Good evening, County Executive. You talked a lot about the budget constraints. I'm concerned about this Maryland Israel Development Corporation Center that Montgomery County gives $45,000 to per year, and the state gives hundreds of thousands of dollars to. It seems like a boondoggle, and it's a country that is engaged in apartheid and genocide now, and I don't understand why our tax dollars need to be going to Israeli companies and weapons manufacturers. So, I hope that you can cut that off. We've been talking about this for years. You know that.
I'll just say the hard thing for me on this is, where do I draw the line? We do business with lots. Yeah. I hear you. I don't.
Poison gas manufacturers here because they do business.
But they're not the only poison gas manufacturers, and we probably deal with them.
Yeah, but we don't fund.
Well, we probably get more money out of the businesses that come. You say no, but they brought some pretty large.
Please hold your
businesses
questions one at a time.
Like,
Thank you.
$45,000 isn't going to fix anything at the school level. No. This is
One person at a time, though,
Look,
please, so everyone
we can raise
gets a chance
this
to
with the
talk.
whole council to see what the temperature is of the whole council.
I thought they'd
But,
tonight.
huh?
I thought they'd be here tonight.
They've not come. They don't come to any of them. So
We're talking to them too.
talk to them too.
We're talking to you. We're talking to them.
But you need
I know.
6 votes to do that.
But
Okay. We have another question over here.
Thank you, County Executive. Nice to see you. I'm a visually vulnerable American, and I love being in this county because of its diversity and because it is a bastion of human rights and all of these lovely humanistic values. Just piggybacking off of the last question, we have to choose. We cannot have it both ways to be a county that upholds these lovely values that make us all proud. But then, when as the International Court of Justice said, there may be a plausible genocide going on right now, when the independent investigators are actually granted access and the plausibility falls away, as a Montgomery County resident, I want to have the dignity to be able to say we were not complicit, that we were clear. Please grant us that dignity. We deserve it because those are Montgomery County values. Thank you.
I hear what you're saying, but there are a lot of people who do business in the United States from countries that do not respect any of the human rights either. Well, they're in our county too. But if I'm getting revenues out of Montgomery County tax money, and the revenues is more than $45,000, I'm pretty sure they are, Saqib.
Yeah, but we don't give to Mexico. We don't give to.
This is a business relationship, not an Israeli. This doesn't go to the Israeli government.
Please, one question at a time so we can have a proper quorum. Thank you. Next question. No, we come to you. Yeah.
Good evening, sir, and my name is Nedi. Last name is Bar, and I'm with the Housing Justice Montgomery. And I have a question. My concern is about the emergency housing assistant, like rental assistant. I was thinking if your office can help to eliminate the requirement for eviction proceedings when you apply for emergency rental assistance, and also to expand the moving assistant program when there is a lease breakage in health hazard situations. And 15-day late period, if renters can be awarded the 15-day grace period as they did for the mortgage holders, like first month rent and 16 days late for payment. Another concern is the storage, like when you are about to be evicted and you get your stuff in the storage, sometimes it's very difficult to pay for the storage, and if there will be a program for, let's say, 3 to 6 months program, like funding for the storage help. And also when you get the place, for the MPDU apartment, like when you apply for the MPDU unit, it's a reduced rent. And when you get a place, like a MPDU unit, there's always issues when it comes to parking fees. So if you apply for reduced rent, I think it's wise to also reduce the parking fees for MPDU units holder.
So you asked a bunch of questions. I think I generally agree with all of it, but there's some things we can't, but a lot of things we can't do. There was a bill to include the fees in what you do with rent stabilization, and landlords we know have taken their apartments and have to comply with rent stabilization and then decide they're going to charge you for parking, which doesn't count as rent, it's just a fee now. And we don't have legal ability to say that's part of the rent if the landlord says it's not a rent, it's a parking fee. It's a problem. We don't have, I don't think we've got the money to pay storage fees for people at the quantity. The number of people who are about to get evicted is enormous. I mean, the last list I saw was literally thousands of people who are going to be on this list, and the county has no ability to pay the money for that any more than we had the ability to keep extending rental payments. We are paying some people's back rent of $20,000. That's not sustainable across thousands of people. We negotiated in the enclave. We were able to get some people resettled into other housing that they could afford to match their incomes, and we seem to be able to get them to discuss reducing the amount they're going to charge people who are in arrear so they can come up with a payment plan so they can stay in their units. We're trying to figure out more sources. We need more sources of money. We put a record amount of money into housing. We hit $270 million this year. We were at like 173 last year and 170 the year before. Any of those 3 years would have been records compared to what we were doing before. So we're pouring more and more money in. Most of the money right now is going to try to build and acquire affordable housing so that people have affordable places to stay. We're going to be sending the council a bill, a complete communities bill, requiring them to zone. Whenever they zone an area, they have to zone for everybody. So they can't do another Bethesda where you zone everything in Bethesda for high-rise and then don't zone it, then it's very hard for anybody else to get an apartment there. But I've seen your list of things, and basically, well, I agree, and we'll see how many things we can get into the budget or how much of them we can do.
Thank you, County Executive Elrich, especially for your leadership on housing, which we know you've been working at since even before you were County Executive. Matt Losak, co-founder of the Renters Alliance and co-founder of Renters United in Maryland. To piggyback on the discussion about housing, we've learned recently that Health and Human Services has got a budget for emergency housing assistance at less than $5 million, which sounds like a lot in household money, but is nothing when it's compared to the need that's out there. The eligibility for those funds are you have to be 30% of area median income, which means basically you're in poverty, and yet we're seeing people above 30% AMI who are also facing housing instability. Of course, that means it's impacting on the success of our students in Montgomery public schools. It's affecting seniors increasingly. And so we know that you cannot produce the funds to solve poverty in Montgomery County. But is there any effort in this budget to increase those funds at Health and Human Services, which reports to us last week that they've got a 100-case backlog just in 1 week, are short-staffed, and of course the outreach ability for DHCA to enforce these, the existing laws is still also somewhat weak. Housing, as I know you believe, is central to the health, welfare, and prosperity of Montgomery County. What is your budget going to do about that?
As I said in the beginning, I don't know what this budget's going to do until I see how much revenue I have. But I do know that on the list of things I want to do a supplemental for is to put some of the money back in so that we can do a little longer extension of how long the rents are out there. The department did not limit it to 30% of area median income to be mean. They did it because they will run out of money, and they thought that they should protect the lowest of the low-income people rather than the other folks who at least have some income that they might be able to find an apartment in. But it's very hard. If we don't, we've built a lot of affordable housing, nowhere near enough to get done. And I think, as people know, if the government if we don't play in the housing space and we rely only on what we get from developers, in a normal project, if I built 3,000 units of market rate housing a year, I would get 450 moderately priced dwelling units, and those dwelling units are only affordable to people making around $65,000 or $70,000. I have 50,000 people in the county earning less than $50,000 who don't even qualify for those programs. And I think, as I said earlier, the teachers making $63,000 $53,000 did not qualify for MPDUs in Montgomery County. So I've got a huge hole, and it's going to have to be fixed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Thank you to the community for coming out tonight. My name is Aaron Droller. I live in Silver Spring. I know that this is MCPS and a school board question, but I do think it goes to you as well. COVID sort of scrambled all of our children in MCPS. I have 2 kids in MCPS, and I have to tell you, behavioral and disciplinary problems are a huge issue. I think you probably know that. Have you given any thought about talking with MCPS, the superintendent, the school board, about restoring the school resource officer program? We really need security back in our schools, and the what was adopted by the council and at MCPS, the current model is not working. We need to restore our school resource officer program in schools. Thank you very much.
So they weren't, the school system was not supposed to do what they did. The agreement was an officer could have a place in the building, but they weren't to come out except that when buses came in and at lunchtime and at dismissal time. And it's only one officer, so they're not covering, they're not going to be able to patrol an entire school. The school system, for reasons we do not understand, left it up to the principals to decide what got done. And some principals wouldn't let them in the building, some principals did let them in the building. What I read from the police chief yesterday, because he was interviewed, is that they have gotten an agreement that every school will have a room, every high school will have a room that an officer can stay in and only come out when they called. They're prohibited from doing school discipline, which is where they got in trouble before. They had no business enforcing school discipline. That's the job of the teachers and the principal, not a cop. The cops are there for things that are serious, not because the kid's not listening to you. And so the new policy will have officers in the high schools, but they will not be roaming around or patrolling the high schools. So they're there if they're needed there, but they got to be called. And that's, I thought between where we originally were on this is a reasonable place to be in the middle. They want them close by. I wouldn't want to have something happen and then have to wait 10 minutes for an officer to get there. So.
Sure. Thank you. And I would just say, just think about middle schools also.
But everybody in a high school is assigned the middle school and a couple of elementary schools. So they have to be called from there to one of them. They know where to go. So they're on call for the other schools as well.
Hi, so my name is Darren Fenwick. I live in Silver Spring. I'm also with Silver Spring United Methodist Church. So thanks for being here. We've seen an increase in the number of people that our church services at our food pantries, our mobile food pantry. And I know you mentioned that the money is sort of dried out with the food. So my question is, looking ahead, would it be possible, do you think, to maybe pull some from the reserves, which I understand has $500 million, as a bridge to getting to some sort of agreement with the council to get additional revenue if additional revenue isn't achieved in this next budget, to meet some of those needs?
So the county has a reserve policy of 10%. And the only reason we're able to do some of the stuff we did in this budget is we'd hit 17%. So it gave us the ability to put tons more money into housing and things like that. I'm pretty sure we're getting some money, and I think we're getting enough money to put some money back into the food program. My intention is to do, on my list of things that are prioritized, is restoring money to the food program. The council cut the money. Everybody told us you shouldn't cut the money because there's more need than you think. Everybody assumes COVID's, not everybody, some people think COVID's over, so why is there a problem? There's a problem because all these problems are here before COVID, and all COVID did is show us where these problems were because people had no place to go, and so they were desperate. So I'm committed, and I'm confident that we're going to get something out of FEMA, and I'm confident that I will put money to restore what I can in the food program, because I do not want us to run out of food halfway through the year. That would not be acceptable.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, my name is Marcia Coleman Adebayo. I'm the president of the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition. First of all, I just wanted everyone to know that we stand with the people of Gaza. And There are a lot of similarities between Palestinian people and African people in the United States. One of them is that the oppressors almost always decide that one of the measures that they will take is that they will desecrate the graves of their ancestors because they understand the importance of cutting off the link between our ancestors and the current generation. Montgomery County has one of the largest mass graves in the world, right located on River Road. Our county executive has been a part of the desecration of Moses African Cemetery. Many of you know that we just won a major victory in the Maryland Supreme Court. We also won a victory in the Maryland Supreme Court, but not a single elected official in Montgomery County has signed a petition or sent a letter saying that they abhor desecration. Not one. So we'd like to know. So we'd like to know. Very simply, when are you going to stop the desecration of Moses African Cemetery?
So we would need a much longer discussion about this. Yes, we do, Marcia. So this is the problem. So we were negotiating with Marcia. She brought in 2 mediators and fired them both because she didn't get the results she wanted. It is true. You picked them and you fired them. No, Marcia, I've got the tapes of the meetings you sat in. Yeah, I know what you are. So you're not going to listen to me? You know, Marcia, I have a right. You asked your question. I'm going to answer it. I am happy to sit down with you. The court. Please.
Lie in my face.
Marcia, you are the liar, and that's just no. For those of you who are interested in the factual version of this, the cemetery is under the driveway next to the HOC building.
Please, this is again a budget forum. Let's keep the quorum. Thank you.
That's it. I'm going to answer as clearly as I can. There is a cemetery over there. It was desecrated around it was wrecked in the mid-50s. It was desecrated once and for all, probably around 1962. It lies underneath the driveway that serves an what is now an HOC building, but HOC didn't build the building, they just bought it maybe 5 years ago from not even the original owner. I worked with Marcia, and I'm totally willing to get the cemetery area, which is the driveway next to the building and a piece of property the Park and Planning owns at the back of it, which used to be part of the cemetery property and got subdivided maybe 50 years ago, and to come up with a memorial that takes the 2 pieces that are actually the cemetery and puts a memorial there to recognize the cemetery. The court ruled that there was a cemetery. Yes, on the property next to the HOC building. The property she's talking about is another property where there was no mass grave and no evidence of it. It is true. Marcia, you can't just say that. So am I going to have to do like a forum just on the stuff you agreed to and listen to people? People should hear what you say. Marcia, I'm not going to listen to you lie. I don't have that obligation.
We can take another question. We can take another question.
I just have my question. Okay.
No. Marcia, I tried to work with you and you walked out of it. No, you stop it.
Excuse me 1 second, please, ladies and gentlemen. There are a lot of issues that I know we all have to get out. But one of the things that we're trying to do is get through people who also have questions or comments. So we want to make sure that we're taking everyone's time into consideration, please. So we're going to move to the next question. Please try as much as you possibly can. I know these are very emotional issues, to let the next person's question be heard in order to keep everyone moving along. So thank you very much.
Mr. Mark Elridge, my name is Latrita Holston, and I actually emailed you, and Teresa answered me back saying that you had no jurisdiction over HOC. But HOC, the Housing Opportunities Commission, oh my God. Go ahead, Latrita. Oh my God. They're disrespectful. They are just something else. My family of 5, about to be 6, is getting ready to be evicted because the county let me down. I went to social services all last year. The moment HOC cost me my job, they cost me my job, almost killed me. And I'm in this wheelchair. You gonna sit here and call Ms. Marsha a liar? But you simply told this woman to tell me you had no jurisdiction when it come to housing.
I don't. I have jurisdiction on some things in housing.
I'm not finished.
Okay.
The other thing is, the fact that I'm being evicted because of somebody else's negligence, a fucking maintenance worker, coming into the house telling me that something wasn't what it is. He lied to cover some stuff up. And now me and my family are suffering because of your ignorance in the county. That's right. I'm fucking pissed. I'm beyond pissed.
Can I answer you?
No, I'm not done. You got them harassing me.
Do you have a question for the county executive? Do you have a question for the county executive, something you would like to have him address?
Do something about HOC, the Housing Opportunities Commission, secret brutally. Everybody up in there, everybody, do something about that. These people treat people, they mistreat them. I shouldn't have to have my neighbors come to me and ask me, Latrita, how can you get in touch with HOC? HOC went silent after I got injured, after they almost killed me. I came to this meeting to be heard, and I'm going to be heard, damn it. That's right. And that's what we're in court now.
So I actually talked to you before the meeting.
You did talk to me,
Yes,
but you
but
still
let me-
acted
but I
like
want to be-
you didn't fucking care.
Please let the county executive answer your question, and please don't profanity as well. This is going out
HOC
on the
is
air.
not a county agency. It is the Housing Opportunities Commission, and I have no control over the board of, I can appoint a board, which we're doing now, new board members, and I have very different objectives for the board members, but I do not appoint the director, and I do not control the agency, and all the employees there are agency employees and not county employees. That's just the reality of HOC. It was created this way, I forget how many years ago, probably 50 years ago, but that's just the way it's created. What I'm trying to do is I've got appointments to the board that I'm going to ask them to take a different approach to their jobs as board members, which is to be more involved in issues involving both tenants and involving workers on the property. But I don't have the ability, I cannot call them up and tell them to do something. I will raise the issues again with them. You're not the first person that I've raised issues with them about. There's other council members who've had similar problems, and it is a problem getting them to move. I agree. But that's why I'm appointing different people to the board, so I have people that I have some confidence in who are going to ask the right questions and ask for the right answers.
There's also social services. That paper, that document that y'all want so bad, if the landlord don't give it, our rent is just piling up. It's just piling up.
Did you tell Teresa what piece of paper you need from somebody?
I sure did. I told them that we needed the document from the courts. That's what I told them.
From the courts?
That's what they wanted for social services. And I went up there several times. I mean, for a whole year and this year. And they kept telling me, oh, we can't help you without that document. But this stuff just keep piling up. Now, what am my family
Just tell me
to
which
do?
document you need from the court.
The document that I needed from the court was basically that it was going to be an
Is there somebody
eviction.
outside? There are two people outside from DHCA. and you can talk with them and get clear what it is you think you need to get from the court. And then we'll see where we go with HOC. I will raise your issue again because I've raised it for other tenants as have other council members, and it's a problem. I'm not saying it's not a problem.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm representing Primary Care Coalition, and we work closely with the safety net healthcare centers across the county, providing services for vulnerable adults and kids. And I'm curious at what you're thinking for the budget in terms of supporting the safety net health centers. We're struggling. We have great staff. We provide great services, but costs keep going up. We can't keep good staff. So I'd be curious what you do plan to do to address that.
I'd like to do what I tried to do last time, which is raise your reimbursement rate, which got cut, not by me. And I will try again to raise your reimbursement rate because you all are going to go out of business if we don't raise the reimbursement rate. You cannot continue to operate on the rate of reimbursement that you're getting. I understand the problem. I'll do what I can to put the money back in the budget to address it, and hopefully it'll stay in the budget.
Just to let everyone know, the proceedings tonight, the forum is going out on cable television, so we ask that you not use profanity because this is going out over the air, okay? So please keep that in mind, and there are kids in the room, so keep that in mind, and please give the county executive your respect when you're asking a question, okay? Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Mark Elridge. Just to clarify, when you say HOC is not under the county's purview, is it because they're receiving federal funds from HUD? So is it under, is it a federal, technically a federal agency? Can
I don't know how the
clarify
chart, there's some federal law that created housing authorities, and HOC was created as a housing authority under the law. And so it wasn't a county law. The county provides some funding, but we're not the primary funder. A couple of years ago, we increased the amount of money they got so they could do deals. So we put more money into their budget for financing projects they want to do. But we are not involved in the day-to-day operation of HOC at all. And like I said, I've been concerned about it. She's not raising an issue that I haven't raised myself. That's why I want a board that I feel comfortable will actually raise the issues because they have the ability to say we want answers and we want accountability.
How much money does Montgomery County send to HOC?
We gave them $50 million for a housing fund for enable them to develop housing in Montgomery County. But that's a fraction of what they spend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mike English, live in downtown Silver Spring and do a fair amount of housing advocacy. And just on that note, want to note that we heard people talk about the work Shepherd's Table does. Housing Justice Montgomery spoke before. Matt Losick of Renters Alliance spoke before. And there's a very direct line between housing needs and homeless supportive services, and I know times are tough, but like there's a lot of important work happening. As many resources as possible need to go there. We are pushing for more funding on the state level. I know it's tough everywhere. Just really reinforce that the need is increasing, federal resources are decreasing. The county needs to give as much as it can there, and speaking, to use the loaded phrase, as a tax-paying homeowner, if I know I'm all for broader revenue conversations. If you need more revenue from me to do that, fine. I don't care.
Thank you.
So
I need to sign up more people for that position. But I'll just say, we jumped the money, $100 million, in our own spending on affordable housing because we were trying to build more, because the only thing we get from the developer is what's required by law, and that's not enough. At 12.5% to 15% of the units that are produced commercially, that's not enough. That's not enough units to deal with the problem we have. That's why we're putting more money in, and we're also making our own deals because the more we're involved and less other people involved, the better off we are.
Okay, sorry. Hi, my name is Patty. Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm just curious. I'm here for a different reason, but I actually got here for another reason. I'm here. I'm actually qualified 20-year revenue agent, 20 years retired revenue agent of the IRS. and I know what to do for your taxes. But currently, I don't have a job. I'm in the shelter system. I'm homeless. Okay? I can't get a job because I have too much experience. Okay? What I'm trying to say to you is that the people that need to be taxed are the people that are higher incomes, and they don't want to hear it, but that tax incentives are where it is. Okay? And I'm going to say this to you, that I'm homeless and I need a job. If you need help, please let me know. I'll be there. I have no problem doing that. There's another occurrence that happened at the shelter recently.
Do you have a question for the county executive?
The question's going in there. I just want to say that the question that I have for you is that the security systems in these shelters, are you planning on doing anything different in reference to them? Because I have had, yesterday I had an order of protection that was typed wrong in the court system, and it was an order of protection that I was released immediately on, and the person typed it up on a peace order, and my security people that were there couldn't execute the order of protection because they're not qualified to do that. I had to call the police and waste your money. So I'm curious, do you have any idea whether you're going to be doing something with the shelters, with the security systems, or bring police people into the security systems?
So the shelter people have asked us pretty much universally to put more money into security at the shelters, and so we've increased the money. We look to try to increase it some more. We realize that they've got a problem, and it's very hard to manage. I mean,
my life was at stake. I'm a 20-year revenue agent, 20 years in revenue agent. I have no substance abuse. I have no mental illness. My name is last on the list for getting housing. And I almost lost my life because somebody messed up in many areas in this county. So I just want to thank you. At least maybe we can get some qualified people in there. Thank you.
You know, if you could give your information to behind you, Jenny, so that we can basically know what shelter, who was involved in it, so we can deal with that and figure out what happened at the court system. The other thing is Montgomery County has a group called, my brain is blanked on this, it's the job, our job, WorkSource Montgomery. And WorkSource Montgomery helps people who need work find work, and so they'll work with you where they are. So they do stuff for people with very few skills, but they also help people who have higher level skills. So when you're talking to Jenny, we can get you some information on WorkSource Montgomery.
Okay, sure. Oh, sorry. Hi. As a sometimes volunteer at Shepherd's Table, I want to associate myself with the comments from the people from Shepherd's Table tonight. Especially one issue I want to raise is the food issue, and I hope whatever that money comes from FEMA, as much as possible, needs to go into that. But very briefly, I ride the Flash Bus, US 29, and I'm very concerned about what's going on with the BRT program, especially stuff involving pedestrian safety and safety for people who are going to be riding on bikes. I want to know what is being done to make sure this project is not only fully funded, but also you're taking into account the needs of people who are going to be walking and getting to these bus stops, because there are very unsafe conditions out there. And some of these stops go across important places such as the East County Montgomery College, Manna, Rainbow Food Center. So there's a social services and an educational aspect, because we want people to use this bus and use it safely. Thank you.
So the BRT on 29 is not really BRT.
I know.
Which is why it has none of the improvements that'll go along with BRT. When it goes into the budget and we actually fund it to look like a BRT, it'll start acting like a BRT. They're supposed to be protected stations. And when I've seen the plans for Veers Mill Road, which is going to should go pretty quickly. They involve sidewalk improvements and other improvements so it's safer for everybody. So when we get to 29, there are things we're going to have to do. If it was up to me, it would run down the middle. It would not run next to the curb. It would have a dedicated right-of-way, so it's not competing with cars and bikes. But that's another issue. We need to, again, that comes down to how much money we're able to put together to do that.
Good night.
Thank you to be here. My name is Roman Gomez. I'm also a homeless person. I just became homeless last week. And I thank you, Shepherd's Table, for the help. But we need help at Shepherd's Table. To me, the bathroom system they have is not enough for all the people to show up every day. We have like maybe 500 people a day during the lunch, breakfast, and dinner. It's only one bathroom on the first floor. I think we need more bathroom for the community. The food is great, the people is great, and also I'm impatient for the situation. Like I said, this week is my first week of homeless. I went to the crisis center, and they offered me $300. At the beginning of the speech of you talking about increasing, the Fairfax get more benefits or whatever. They had more benefits, doing this, doing that. Montgomery County offered me $300 to pay for a room. $300, I don't think it's enough for people to pay for a room or rent for a month. I'm pretty happy if you increase that amount of money, because $300 is not enough to help people. But thank you very much.
I would say it's 300 because of the number of people they're spreading money over. It's a function of how much money there is total and how many people it gets divided among.
Yeah. So I'm a new father. My baby is now 5 months. Over the past year, I've been watching images of babies getting blown up every single day. And so tonight I came to this forum, and I've heard you defend $40,000 to Israeli businesses. What should I think of you and the rest of the county council?
I do not support, and I've been pretty clear, that I do not support Israel's approach to what's happening over there. I said on the first day after October 7th that this needs to stop now and should not be allowed to expand into a broader war. Anybody could see this coming. It was the wrong thing to do on October 8th, and it's the wrong thing to be doing now.
We have a question back here, Mr. County Executive.
I'm going to stand up.
We're not paying the money.
Hi, my name is Pascal Lemaire. I'm with the Enclave Tenant Association, and I live, as many of you know, in a notorious property. My question for you is about code enforcement. We live in a property where we have thousands of code violations that the landlords do not pay, or they pay at the final hour after the damage has been done. What will you do, Mark Elridge, to hold the landlords accountable finally, and to revise the system of code enforcement, which is not working?
So code enforcement doesn't work because the judicial system doesn't work. If you are fined for a repair, you should not be absolved of the fine if you show up 9 months later and say, I fixed it yesterday.
Exactly.
And that is a legal problem. And our inspectors are unable to compel anybody to do anything because you wind up in court, and you wind up in court months and months later. I've talked to people that said their cases don't wind up in court for 6 to 9 months sometimes. So this is a problem. There is a new state law that we're looking at which gives us the ability to, theoretically, for tenants to organize, put money in escrow, and be able to use that money to do repairs.
TSA, we are working on it.
Yes, and so I'm very supportive of that. I was very happy. We will work with you on that because it is.
I will hold you to that.
Trust me.
We have witnesses.
I was looking forward to them doing this because it gives us the tool we don't have. We actually have a bill, and we actually have a law in Montgomery County that's repair and deduct. But nobody wants to do the repair and deduct law individually. But you actually could do that. If a landlord violates the housing code and they don't fix it in a reasonable amount of time, you're actually allowed to call Johnny Be Quick and have him come fix your toilet, and then take whatever you pay them off your next month's rent.
However, you have to front load that expense instead of the landlord who doesn't do it.
Though you don't have to pay the landlord when your rent comes due for your front expense.
Right.
I get, look, this is what we could do within the law. This new law may offer us enough tools to actually be more effective about it. We looked at that property when it went up for sale. We went to see if we could buy it or find a partner. They wanted too much money. They ultimately lost their actual market rate partner, and that sale didn't go through. But, you know, that's a building we would love to be able to acquire if the price is right, because we could find a way to fix it up and
We would
return
love
it to
that.
proper. So, but we did try that. I'm just saying we will look at it again. If it goes back on the market and the price works, we'll see if we can make it work again.
The other caveat is 311, please make it easier for someone, even with a college education, has to spend too much time to fill it out. Our building is full of refugees who need help. We have been helping them one-on-one. So please make the system easier so that we can complain when we have legitimate complaints.
Have you tried the computerized version of it?
Yes.
The new version?
Yes, last week.
And
it was difficult.
It didn't give you an answer?
Yeah, we had to put, I found out by default that I have to put the management's address in 311, not the person's home address. Duh, we didn't know that. I do now.
Who's taking this? Because this is the kind of improvement our folks can do with 311.
They do everything to make it very difficult, and we need help.
We've gotten good reviews on the changes they've made to it. If there's still problems, it's providing more correct answers than it used to provide. So if there's a problem, we can tell people to fix it.
All right.
Mr. County Executive, the time is now 8:26. We have 4 minutes left for tonight.
Let's go to 8:40.
Good evening. My name is Diane Carrillo. I'm a proud resident of Montgomery County. I live in Silver Spring with my two daughters, Zena, who's 6, and Isabella, who is 10. I am currently a part-time student at Montgomery College studying criminal justice. In addition to being a part-time student and a mother, I work at the Smithsonian Natural History Museum. Balancing my job, raising Zena and Isabella, and pursuing my education is a challenge, but Montgomery College has enabled me to keep moving forward. The flexibility and the support I receive here allows me to manage my responsibilities while continuing my studies. Although I did not attend Montgomery County Public Schools myself, many of my family members have graduated from or are attending MCPPS. I have seen firsthand the strength and the value of... Give me a second. Okay.
I love MC, so you don't need to sell it to me.
Of our value of our local system. Now, as a Montgomery College student, I feel the legacy of the education opportunity my family has built from here. My passion lies in advocating for immigrant and unrepresentative communities. After graduating, I do plan to continue my education. As a single mother and as a student, what is your plan, or what do you plan, resources you plan to giving for high school students that do not qualify for FAFSA or do not know what scholarships are available?
I thought that MC was doing a very good job with scholarships, and they put a lot of money into scholarships, and we fund a lot. So, and they've also gotten funded with what they've asked for pretty much every year under me. So I keep making sure the money goes there. If they need more, they should, tell us what else they need in terms of scholarship money. But we've been pretty good with them.
Yeah, but this is not a personal matter. When my oldest daughter had a mental breakdown back in spring of 2022, I lost my eligibility for financial aid or any scholarships because my GPA dropped. I paid for my college out of pocket. Just this year alone, I spent $6,000 for spring, summer, and my fall tuition. And I'm trying to get my FAFSA back, but that's not a guarantee. So with the GPA requirement of being so high, a lot of people do not qualify for that scholarship.
Well, this is outside the realm of the county government. This is something you've got to deal with inside MC.
Or something, the extra help would be grateful.
They'd have to change the regulations for eligibility.
Hello, thanks for coming out, Mr. County Executive. I want to first say my heart goes out to all the children, family members, all these wars that's going on and things of that nature. But right here and right now in our own backyard, on our own homeland, I want to ask you to fight for us, to push for us, to take those monies from the capital. You talk about how Virginia, you want to model after them. So let's start, I'm asking that you push for us to be able to take those funds or raise the taxes on the commercial properties. Also to remember the children, the education, and those that are struggling with their kids with housing. I'm here with Housing Justice, Interfaith Works, and Progress Place. If it wasn't for them, I would still probably be sleeping on the sidewalk in the parking lot of Progress Place. But what I am asking now is that you take a look at taking those funds, maybe even from the, because I was seeing on the budget, maybe even from the taxes that are generated through the revenue of tickets, fines, and things of that nature. But also one of the main things is with the housing, I had the opportunity, which was really not a good one, but I happened to be sitting there that night that they told everyone, they came in the cafeteria and said they're pulling the funding for SHARP program, the exit program, and also the the rental assistance. And a lot of guys were stuck. They didn't have their paperwork in, and if you didn't have that paperwork in at that moment, that was it. The funding was gone, it was lost, and people. So my thing is asking, are you going to push for us? Are you going to fight for us? Because there's a lot of desperate women, children, families, people with mental health that are in need. So we need that desperate spirit to be lifted. We need that desolate feeling to be filled.
If you looked at my budget from the last year and look at what I proposed and what got approved, you'll see a lot more social spending in what I proposed than what got approved. I put that money in there deliberately because I wanted to be able to address these issues. And I am limited because once I can't do that, I have no ability to invent money. I have no ability to get the council to reverse the votes they took. That's the best shot I've got now is if I get additional money, I send over a bill and I say, these are the things we want to add back to the bill. I will do that. This is important to me.
Hi, I only get 30 seconds, so I'll be brief. Using the figure, the $300 figure that the gentleman at the back said that would help him out, I would rather see 150 residents get the $45,000 split up as opposed to giving it to some Israeli organization. So I'm curious. I appreciate what you said as far as you never thought Israel was doing the right thing on October 8th, but action speaks louder than words. So I'm asking you if you would take that $45,000 and appropriate back to the citizens of the county.
He has an answer.
Huh? I've already said I don't think that's going to happen unless you get a council that agrees to it. I told you in the beginning, it is very hard if I would vote, I probably would be comfortable not sending it to defense industries, but not all Israeli industries are defense industries.
We have time for one last question.
This isn't going to the military.
Can we follow up with you after this?
You can talk to me, but it's not going to the military.
That's from the We'll take one last question over
not
here.
from Montgomery County. I've had lots of questions on this. I can take other questions. It's not fair to everybody else.
Councillor Outreach, thank you very much for your time. I have a situation where I need to ask a question, and it concerns, I've been through the system, I understand it. It's not exactly smooth running, particularly when you come from a homeless situation. I'm a father, I'm a single father of a child who's actually a lady now, but she's disabled, vulnerable adult, not able to care for herself. We are grateful for the accommodation we were given to moving to the apartment we had, but it's almost like the day we walked into that apartment, that apartment was starting to sing I Fall to Pieces. I've written to you directly. My name's Gibson Holman, by the way. Yes, and I've kept you abreast of the developments over a period of the year that we've been renting. The complexity that we are finding ourselves with, Mr. Outreach, and I'd like you to please somehow, I know it's not a simple situation, it involves politics and a whole lot of things that need to be resolved, but it does not make sense when you sign a lease, subsequent to signing the lease, you tell them that you have a deaf person who has special needs, and these are the accommodations that need to be in place. November last year we moved in. Till today, the accommodations have still not been met. After sending several letters to the city we live in and to your office, I've had people walk in and basically hold meetings, but those meetings end up becoming very futile because the things that need to be done are not being done. I don't know how you're going to resolve it, but handicapped people in this county have a problem. Their voice is voiceless. Nobody is championing their cause because they are just considered another species of humanity. Please, Mr. Outreach, find a solution. We need an answer today. We're not waiting for another 6 years. And when I say we need an answer today, I truly believe that with the power that's invested in you, you can bring those that are under you to the table and get them to start doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that's treating your residents and your citizens, particularly the handicapped community, with the respect and the dignity they deserve. Thank you.
I was going to say, doing a repair, doing modifications of an apartment is not the county's purview. It is the owner's purview. And under the law, they're not obligated to modify an apartment for a resident. They're really not. I don't have a way of obligating them for fixing an apartment. I mean, I know it is hard finding things that are handicapped accessible, but there are some places that are handicapped accessible. But under the law, nobody could tell the owner that they have to fix the apartment for a handicapped person. It's just not the law.
I understand, Mr. Alvin. Yes. However, if subsequent to signing the contract, you agreed to do it and it's written in the contract, and you don't obligate yourself towards it or make a move, then that's a breach of contract.
If that's true, then the path is for you to file a COLTA complaint for breach of contract. If you have something in the contract that says, I'm paying this rent, and and the owner says, I'm obligated to do X, Y, and Z, that is something we can actually take through the county's landlord-tenant process. This has been done before. This is how tenants get things done that landlords promise and then the landlords don't deliver. So I don't know if you've dealt with COLTA, but you could, again, talk to one of my people back there to get you the contact information from landlord-tenant so I can send you through the process where you might be able to get this resolved.
Yes, there's the Office of Landlord and Tenant Affairs outside. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight to stress your issues that are so important to you. I want to thank the county executive for being here, answering questions. All of our department directors and staff for being here. You are in Silver Spring, the #1 place to raise families in the entire country, one of the most diverse cities in the entire country, and one of the most generous places in the entire country. Give it up for yourself, Silver Spring. Thanks for coming out.
Utilidades como la de electricidad, PEPCO y también Convera.